Okay, welcome to our demo for TripIt system. This was designed by Kyle Kowalski, Dan Rubin, and Cesar Sanchez. So today I'm going to be going through some use cases for our program. These are going to be in order of add user, creating an individual trip, adding plans to that trip, editing and deleting plans, exporting an itinerary to a text file, sharing the trip with other users, viewing the shared trip notifications, view shared trip plans, creating a group member, creating a group, adding and deleting group members, creating a group trip, and reading and writing objects. I'm also going to highlight the scheduling functionality, which does not allow for users to go on trips that overlap with trips currently in their schedule. Let's take a look at the objects that we're going to be creating today. We're going to be creating 3 users named after the group members of our group, and they're all going to enter a group called ISOM Friends. In that group, we're going to create a group trip to Las Vegas, while we're also going to make an individual trip for Kyle to Hawaii. Let's get started. Okay, so now we can see the TripIt home screen. All of these buttons are disabled because a user has not been logged in, visible by viewing in the top left corner. So let's go ahead and create a user. First, we will create Kyle. You will see a confirmation when a user has been successfully added. And we will continue to create our other members. Great. Now that a user has been successfully added, we will be able to log in using the login screen located on the home page. So, you must log in using an email address. So I will log in as Kyle. You will see a confirmation that your login has been successful, followed by seeing the user's email address in the upper left-hand corner of all the screens. And now the other buttons are activated. Our next use case is to create an individual trip. In order to create an individual trip, we will click the Trips button from the home page. And you can see that Kyle has no trips at the moment. We will select the New Trip button, where we will enter all of the information for our upcoming trip. Once your trip has been successfully created, you will be directed to the Trip View screen, where you can view all of the plans for your trip. And since this is a new trip, we currently have no new plans. We can select which plans we would like to add by clicking one of these buttons. Highlight the scheduling functionality of TripIt. Suppose Kyle were to try to make another trip that overlaps with his Hawaii trip from March 1st to March 15th. An error message arrives saying you are not available for those dates, and the trip is unable to be created. Now let's add some plans to Kyle's trip to Hawaii. This is the Add Lodging GUI screen. We will enter the relevant information for Kyle's hotel that he will be staying at during his trip to Hawaii. There will be a 2 p.m. check-in and a 9 a.m. checkout. Kyle will be staying at the Marriott in Honolulu. After clicking Add to Trip, you will see that it has populated in the trip itinerary. Let's continue adding plans. Now that all of the flight information has been added, we may add it to Trip. Now let's add an activity. Our first activity we add will be hiking in the mountains on March 4th. And notice how the activities in the itinerary are sorted by date. So let's try adding an activity on March 3rd. And you'll see that this dinner activity is placed before the activity that we added previously. Now let's add our flight back home. So now our itinerary for Kyle's trip to Hawaii has been built. You can see all of the relevant information for each of his flights, lodging, and activities that he will be doing throughout his trip, all stored in one place by date. Now that our trip has been created and filled with plans, we can go to the My Trips screen and see that it is populated in Kyle's list of trips. Now, if we would like to edit or delete plans for our trip, we may select the trip to open up the trip view screen once again. So, suppose that Kyle has changed the location for his dinner on March 3rd. You may click on this plan, come in here, and now they're going to do it a little bit earlier at 8 p.m. And it's going to be at the hotel restaurant. And you'll see that the plan has been updated in the itinerary. And since Kyle decided he would not like to go hiking anymore, we can select the hiking activity and remove the activity from our plans. And this will reflect in the itinerary where the hiking activity is no longer visible. Now let's see what it looks like to print our trip itinerary to a text file. This will be useful for Kyle to print out his itinerary to take with him on his trip. So we will select the export to text file. And then, visible in the itinerary file is the itinerary for the trip. Now, we would like to share our trip with another user in the TripIt system. So, we are going to share this with Cesar. From the trip view screen, select the Share button and enter the other user's email address. Confirmation will appear. Now, let's log into Cesar and see what it looks like on his screen when a trip has been shared with him. We are now logged in to Cesar's account. A notification will be shown in the Shared with Me trip buttons right above in red to notify that one trip has been shared with Cesar. Now we are in the Trips Shared with Me screen, where Cesar can see the trip that Kyle just sent to him from his platform. Cesar may also click on the trip and view the itinerary for all of the individual plans on the trip. Here you will see a view of all of the plans for Kyle's trip to Hawaii. Note that Cesar is unable to edit the plans for Kyle's trip. Now that the trip has been viewed, this notification number is set back to 0 because there is no unseen shared trips. Now let's begin exploring the group functionality in the TripIt system. To create a group, you will first need to navigate to the Group button to view your groups. Now, Cesar has not been in a group yet, so to create a new group, you will select New Group. Now we will create the ISOM Friends group. A group ID is automatically populated with the group name. A list of the group members will populate in this list. Now there has been no one else added to the group besides Cesar, so let's add Dan and Kyle. You are also able to remove members from the group. Now Kyle has been removed, but let's add him back. Now we have our group created, but you can see there's no trips that we have created for our group. Now let's create a group trip, but first let's log into Dan to see how the new group reflects in his account. There's the group in Dan's account. Now we can come into the group view screen and select New Trip. This opens the same New Trip screen, except with the Group Trip Radio button selected and the group ID already populated. Now let's create our trip to Vegas. But remember, Kyle, who is in this same group, has a trip going to Hawaii on March 1st. Let's see what happens if we try to create a trip that overlaps with a group member's schedule. And there's the warning that one or more group members are not available, and it will not allow the trip to be created. Let's move forward with our planned dates. There is no conflict with any group member's schedule. Therefore, the trip to Las Vegas has been created for the whole group. Let's log into Kyle's account to see how that has been reflected. And there it is. You can see the group trip to Las Vegas for his group ISOM friends. Sorted by date is all of his trips that are upcoming. Now let's move on to our final use case, reading and writing objects. On the home screen, we may select the Write Object file. Now let's exit out of the program. We'll start it back up on NetBeans. and let's read in the object file. Now let's see if we can log into Kyle's account. Login successful, and there are Kyle's trips that we have created with all of the plans filled in. You can also see his group with all of his group members and their new trip to Las Vegas. That is all for our demo video of the TripIt system.